Confessions of a Logoleptic. Please welcome Chiara.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Chiara and I have a secret confession. I am obsessed. Now this obsession has cost me thousands of dollars, countless hours of time, innumerable gray hairs, and almost unsurmountable amounts of frustration. I am obsessed with language. Now specifically, the language that I'm most obsessed with is poetry. And I think it's really that poets are able to tell these really impacting, amazing truths, but they do it by telling it in slant. So everything is through that poet's guise, through that gaze that shows you how to look at life in a different way. And so I've spent a lot of time, because I'm a big nerd, I spent a lot of time reading poetry and learning these slanted truths. People like Eliot and Elizabeth Bishop, John Keats, and Langston Hughes. All of these people have shown me how to find these slanted truths in my own self, in my own writing. Now, my favorite kind of poetry is confessional poetry. Now, it's a little bit more than just writing down your feelings on a piece of paper. Confessional poets are trained in poesy, but they kind of break down that wall that naturally exists between poet and subject. They let out raw emotion and oftentimes tackle some really deep, dark secrets in their own lives. My favorite confessional poet is Sylvia Plath, and I think this idea of being able to say anything, as long as you have enough guts and imagination, this is what really drives my love of confessional poetry. And it's her vulnerability and her imagination that really draw me to her. Now, she had kind of a tough life. Her dad died very early on when she was 7, and she struggled for most of her life with depression and mental illness. Also had a pretty rocky marriage to fellow rock star poet Ted Hughes, and unfortunately she took her own life in 1963. Now, she spent a lot of her life feeling like the heroine in the bell jar. She felt the weight of these pressures and of her own depression. She felt that they were like sour air stifling her, and her poetry was sort of a way for her to open up that bell jar and express herself, as she does in the poem Daddy, where she kind of takes you on a dark journey of grief. There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you, and they always knew it was you. Daddy, daddy, you bastard, I'm through. It's a kind of a downer, kind of intense. But now, not all of Sylvia Plath's poetry is like this. My favorite Plath poem is Metaphors, and this really speaks to the logoleptic in me. I'm a riddle in 9 syllables, an elephant, a ponderous house, a melon strolling on 2 tendrils. Oh, red fruit, ivory, fine timbers, this loaf's big with its yeasty rising. Money's new minted in this fat purse. I'm a means, a stage, a cow and calf. I've eaten a bag of green apples, boarded the train, there's no getting off. So I'm going to let you into the mind of someone who suffers from logolepsy, thankfully, gladly. We're going to break this poem down line by line and figure out what the answer to this riddle is. All right, so our first line is, I'm a riddle in 9 syllables. If you count the syllables in each of the lines of this poem, there are 9 syllables in each line. There are actually 9 lines in the poem Metaphors, and the word metaphors has 9 letters in it. So your first clue is 9. 9 is obviously very important. Right. The next line features 2 images of size. We have an elephant and a ponderous house. So it may seem straightforward, just 2 big things, but there's potentially something else going on in here. Elephants are sometimes symbols of fertility. They're kind of big on family. And that word ponderous shows me that this house is almost bigger than it can possibly be imagined, bigger beyond belief. The next line, a melon strolling on 2 tendrils. This is such a delicious image, the idea of visualizing a giant watermelon walking around on these 2 thin little tendrils, just strolling along. It's very top-heavy, kind of clumsy. So that's my next clue. You already figured it out. Oh, red fruit, ivory, fine timbers. Here Plath throws in an apostrophe. She's talking to something or somebody outside of the poem. So we've got some contrasting images. We've got red fruit kind of paired with ivory, tying it back to the elephant a little bit, but then also a good strong color contrast. And then fine timbers, really delicate pieces of wood. This is probably my favorite line of the entire poem. This loaf's big with its yeasty rising. visualize taking a piece of bread through that process. So you mix these ingredients together and you let them double, triple, quadruple, quintuple in size, and then when it's ready, you put that bun in the oven. Now, the next line in the poem, money's new minted in this fat purse. So newly minted money, newly made money, fresh, hot off the presses. And it's inside of this fat purse. This purse is almost overflowing with this newly minted money. This kind of ties us back to this idea of a house kind of being a container. A fat purse is a container for all this money. I'm a means, a stage, a cow, and calf. I am a means to an end. I am a stage in a much longer process. I'm a step. And I'm a cow in calf. So I have not only an adult cow that is simultaneously an infant. We're getting close to the end. I've eaten a bag of green apples. So if you ate a bag of green apples, and I haven't actually tried this, but I imagine you'd be pretty full, and you might actually get pretty sick. So another image of fullness, size, and then we have another image of fruit here again. All right. Now we're getting to the end of this journey. Our speaker lays out kind of a morose image. Boarded the train, there's no getting off. Once you start this journey, once our speaker starts this particular train journey, she can't get off without getting to her final destination. The final destination is when the journey actually ends. So, what do? When I add all of these pieces together, I figure out that the speaker of this poem is pregnant. And it's this slanted telling of what pregnancy is like, that it's bittersweet. It's not always awesome. You feel kind of clumsy, but in the end, the journey's worth it. It's this that really drives my obsession for language, and that's why I love being a local lecturer.